One morning in 1979, a procession moved through Lagos traffic carrying a coffin. It passed every cemetery and kept going. Destination: the front gate of Dodan Barracks, the headquarters of Nigerian's military government. The man leading that procession had brought the coffin as a delivery, a personal package for the head of state. Now, what kind of person delivers a coffin to a dictator's front gate? To understand him, we have to go back to a boy from Abeokuta who was supposed to become a doctor. He was born in 1938 into the most formidable family in town. His father, a strict reverend who ran schools with iron discipline. His mother once led thousands of furious women against the king over unfair taxes and did not stop until that king left his throne. Hold on to her. This whole story bends around her. Two of the boys in that house became doctors. A cousin from the family would later win the Nobel Prize for Literature. Serious house. And then there was Fela. In 1958, the family sent him to London to study medicine. Fela landed, looked at medicine, and quietly enrolled in music school instead. The family found out later. You can imagine the family meeting. He came home with a band, playing high life mixed with jazz. Good music, sweet music, and by his own later admission, music that was not saying anything. Then came 1969, America. In Los Angeles, he met an African-American activist. She handed him the autobiography of Malcolm X and opened the door to the ideas of the Black Panthers, Africa, power, pride, history. Fela read, and something in him caught fire and never went out. He said later that for the first time, he saw Africa clearly from 6,000 miles away. He returned to Lagos with a new sound cooking, long songs, some running past 20 minutes, horns that argued, drums that never apologized, lyrics in pidgin, deliberately, so that the whole continent could sing along, not just the book people. He called it Afrobeat. His club, The Shrine, became its temple. Then he did something small on paper and enormous in spirit. He dropped his surname, Ransom, a slave name he called it. In its place, Anikulapo, he who carries death in his pouch. Think about what that name is claiming. You cannot kill a man who is holding death in his own pocket. Remember that name. Nigeria was going to test it thoroughly. Because Fela was just getting started. He gathered his band, his dancers, his family and followers into one compound in Lagos. A commune, free clinic, recording studio, dozens of people living, working and recording together. And then he declared the compound independent from Nigeria. He called it the Calcutta Republic. The name, he said, came from a prison cell he had once been thrown into. He took the government's punishment and turned it into a country. A republic inside a republic. Population, one compound. Head of state, one saxophonist. The Nigerian government was not amused. Nigerians people were extremely amused. And the music kept escalating, song after song, mocking corruption, mocking colonial mentality, mocking power itself. Until 1976, when he released the one that crossed the line, Zombie. Zombie compared Nigerian soldiers to the walking dead. No brain, no direction. Go and kill, go and die. The song became a monster hit across Africa. And on Nigerian streets, ordinary people began singing it as actual soldiers. Imagine wearing that uniform and hearing a whole street chant Zombie as you pass. A military government can survive many things. Being laughed at is really one of them. February 18, 1977. If you watched our Festac episode, you know this date. 6 days after the biggest celebration of black culture on earth closed in Lagos, soldiers surrounded Calcutta. Hundreds of them, some accounts say 1,000. They beat Fela within reach of his life. He said afterwards that only the intervention of one commanding officer stopped them from finishing the job. The studio, the instruments, the master tapes, the clinic, burned. And his mother, the same woman who once faced down a king, was thrown from a window. She was 77 years old. The official inquiry that followed blamed it all on an unknown soldier. We have discussed that verdict before. It has not improved with time. Fela did the lawful thing first. He sued the army for the destruction. In February 1978, the court threw his case out. So that same month, 1 year, almost to the day after the raid, he answered in his own language. He gathered 27 women of Kalakuta, his singers, his dancers, the women who had survived the fire with him, and married all of them. In one ceremony, in one day. He gave his reasons plainly to honor them, to mark the anniversary of the attack, and to end the government's favorite accusation that it was holding women in Kalakuta against their will. Married women cannot be kidnapped. Nigeria argued about that day then, and Nigeria argues about it now. He would not have minded. Being argued about was his natural habitat. Then 2 months later, the blow that had no answer. April 13th, 1978, his mother died from her injuries. The woman who removed the king, killed by a fall from her home window in a raid over a song. Most people bury their grief quietly. Fela built his a vehicle. That is the procession we started with. 1979, a coffin driven through Lagos, delivered to the gates of Dodan Barracks for the attention of the head of state. And in case the person needed a note, he released 2 songs as receipts, one called Unknown Soldier, the other called simply Coffin for Head of State. The man was mourning at full volume in public and daring the government to respond. And still, he was not finished. In 1979, he formed a political party, the Movement of the People, MOP. His words, to clean up society like a mop. He put himself forward for president. The authorities refused his candidacy. Nigeria never got to vote for the black president, so he gave himself the title anyway in music. What followed was 2 decades of the same duel. Fela sang, the state struck. He was arrested so many times that counting became a national pastime. Some counts passed 200. The heaviest blow came in 1984 under a new military government. Arrested at the airport on a currency charge on his way to an American tour. 5 years, said the judge. Amnesty International looked at the case and named him a prisoner of conscience. After 20 months, yet another government released him. He walked out and went straight back to the stage. Then came August 2nd, 1997. Fela died in Lagos. He was 58. The next day, his younger brother stood before the country, Professor Olikoye Ransom Kuti, a doctor, a former health minister, and he said what Nigerian families did not say out loud in 1997. His brother had died of complications from AIDS. In one sentence, at his own brother's death, he broke a national silence around the deceased. The family was still teaching, even in grief. And then Lagos did something it reserves for almost nobody. It stopped. Fela lay in state in a glass coffin as the city filed past. The funeral procession took over the streets. Crowds people still argue about. Hundreds of thousands, many swear a million. The man the state had beaten, burned and jailed for 20 years, received the largest farewell in the country's memory. He was buried at home in Kalakuta. So what remains? Everything, honestly. His children carried the sand and built the new Africa Shrine. Lagos throws a festival for him every year. Broadway made the musical of his life. And every Afrobeat star filling a stadium anywhere on this planet today is drinking from a well that a stubborn man dug with a saxophone. They tested the name for 40 years, beat him, burned his republic, locked him up, the name held. You cannot kill a man who carries death in his own pouch. it simply turned into everybody. He used to say music is the weapon of the future. The future arrived, the weapon still works. Next time, before Fela ever held a saxophone, his mother held something heavier. 10,000 furious women outside a king's palace over tax. The woman they threw from the window has her own story, and it might be bigger than his. The lioness of Lisabi, come and meet Fumilayo.